mainnet runs nodes which connect to mainnet. These are RPC nodes, archival RPC nodes, canary nodes, no validators so far. The near core is the one we use for testnet, which also includes one validator and a bunch of developer run nodes. And the one I suggest we use today is mocknet, because mocknet is another completely isolated network that we use for testing releases. What we do is somebody creates, I don't know, 10 to 100 nodes, start them up, they all start talking to each other, generate some load, and see if this network behaves well, if it can perform the binary upgrade. And if yes, then probably the release is good enough. If no, definitely something is wrong. So we go to mocknet. I think everybody has access to be editors of this project, but if not, please let me know. Okay, so I created a few nodes for myself already and have the network running. I will explain how I managed to do it in almost no time. So step 1, go to this page, create yourself an instance. I suggest we call it localnet and the username, pick the region you like. Machine type. For production nodes, we use N2 standard, N2 standard 8, I believe. We're not running a big network, should be fine with cheaper machines. Yes, this doesn't fulfill the hardware requirements, but that is okay. It's just for testing, it's just for learning, that should be fine. And I'm uneasy about this 10 gigabytes by default, so I usually change it to 100. And in a second, I will have an instance. And I expect everyone to follow along and create their own instance of LearnNet in this project. Questions anytime? Yes, Yoon.
Sorry, could you go back to the page where which instance I need to create, like the machine configuration? I think that was a little too fast for me.
Okay, machine type. I suggest E2 standard 4. But for production, we would go for N2 standard 8. But it doesn't matter in our little case. So N2.
Thanks. Do we need to change anything else, or do we just create based on the default image?
Increase disk size to something higher, and that's it. No other changes.
Do we just create one or multiple?
Yes. Create one.
Okay.
And we'll all join in the same blockchain. SSD or HDD? Ask Simonas. Let's go SSD. So that would be that would be SSD. Yes, my GCP is in German and I cannot fix it. I gave up. Yes, so the show of hands who managed to create an instance. My German is fine, but some of the terminology is really weird. Like nobody calls storage with these interesting words. This is a bit too German. Anyway. If zone matters, not really. If you create it in a different interesting zone, it will be more diverse, our tutorial. Okay. How do we connect to it? From a browser, probably. So we have the instance. Let's connect SSH to it. Well, let's find out if you have gcloud CLI installed. Let me know if you don't. Or maybe for the recording, I should mention it anyway. But how do I even install it? Yeah, so this would be the one, the page that explains how exactly to download and install it. Yes, thank you, Simonas. Thank you, Andrei. Brew install, perfect. But this instance is freshly created, doesn't have any software. We need some, which is wget. We need wget to get the near-d binary. And then but the first action we do is we download the near-d binary. Before double wget. And please let me know if I'm too fast, too slow, to something, because I see no videos, I see no reactions, and that is uncomfortable.
Oh, what's the command for installing the wget again?
That was the simple sudo apt install wget. Yep. This is the one problem I haven't thought about. How do I share the Genesis file? Can I attach it to the invite? Nope.
Nikolai, for the educational purposes or for the recording purposes, like, could you be able to explain like what each step means and what we are trying to achieve?
Okay. 1 second. So what we're trying to achieve, the goal is to run an independent, isolated network on multiple machines where each of us has a node and that node is a validator. We do this on GCP because we use GCP for running production nodes, which is those RPC nodes accessible by the community, including the archival nodes. That's also where we run the canary nodes and where we do the all possible testing, like canary is one format of testing, but also if somebody is working on a feature, it is convenient to create an instance on GCP because it has backups which can be easily installed in a matter of not seconds, but maybe minutes. And then you have a node where you can deploy your experimental code, run it, and see how it behaves. That's what we're trying to achieve. What we've done now is everybody created an instance on GCP, downloaded the binary, and now we're going to run it with the right configuration so that all these nodes join the same network. How to distribute a file, complicated, but this should be. Let's use S3 to distribute files. So I posted 2 links in chat. Those are config and Genesis. But before we go there, where is it? So for the node to function, the node needs its own node key. The node needs Genesis. The node needs to know the addresses of boot nodes and how to connect to them. So the easy way to create all of that is to run d init. That creates a directory .near, which has all these files, config, Genesis, node key, and validator. But if you run the node now, it will be your private isolated network of one node, which is not what we want. To fix that, please overwrite those files. The links I posted. Forbidden, obviously. And then I will show you how to make it into an actual validator node. I'm looking for a way to distribute files, yes. Yes, we overwrite both files, but the files are not readable. Let me see what I can do about it in a second.
geox0.st is a simple uploading tool that you can use that produces files that are readable by default. I pasted the link to it in the chat.
Where do I click? Anyway, paste bin indeed. We can do paste bin.
I'm not even able to click into the config.json or genesis.json link. It says access denied. Like even when I just click it.
Yes. So to fix that and copying stuff to paste bin, none of that is sensitive or private. That should be fine. Okay. 1 and 2. Yes. Oh, okay.
Were the first file config JSON or Genesis JSON?
First is config. Hmm? I think it's big O, but let's see if this node runs. It has the correct hash of the Genesis block. A1 something looks correct. And yes, this is the typical experience of a typical validator. They run the binary, they get these lots of messages, and we tell them this is fine. But yes, it is indeed fine. But the user experience can be improved.
Sorry,
So-
kind of quick random question. How do you know if it is fine by looking at it? Like, is there anything specific we have to monitor?
Well, all of this can be safely ignored by most people. And what I'm looking for is the info stats messages printed every 10 seconds. And it tells me that the node is successfully downloading blocks. So it started, it found the peers. Yes, it has like 2-3 peers. Then the node asks those peers, what is your head height? They tell us like 1,000, 2,000, something like that. Step number 1, let's download headers. Step number 2, let's download and replay all those blocks. And that's what is actually happening. So downloaded 500 blocks, downloaded 900 blocks, and those blocks are mostly empty. So that is going fast. Downloaded 3,000 blocks. As long as it's actually syncing and the height actually increases, everything is fine. Can it be more detailed than this? I don't know. If you see a node stuck at the same height for longer than 10 seconds, something is definitely wrong. Yes, but if the height keeps increasing, then I would say it's okay. If the node crashes and restarts constantly, yes, there is a problem. And there can happen in many interesting ways. Okay. So this
sorry,
node,
one more question. Which one is height? I mean, like, where does it indicate height?
is 5,227 in my case is height. So,
I see.
okay, yeah, that's a good question. Let's go at the status line. So the format is current height, some status message, which is usually different. This is only for the sync scenario. Then number of peers, network traffic download, upload, blocks per second, gas per second. Yes, those blocks are full empty, therefore 0 gas per second. CPU usage, memory usage. What we see is often validators report issues where they give us the logs, which is a collection of these info stats lines. And they say something is broken, please investigate. And they consider it not enough information to investigate anything reasonably because it only gives information about the height and CPU load, which is insufficient for any meaningful diagnostic. But we do see that. And a proper way to enable debug log would be to restart the node with the verbose flag set to empty. And you can see a bunch of debug logs.
What's a proper way to stop the node? Is there any official way to stop the node, or?
Control-C is good enough because it sends a SIGINT and we process SIGINT gracefully.
Okay.
So it shuts down the pools of workers, it shuts down the client, shuts down the RocksDB safely, and then it shuts down completely. So that should be handled well. Even if you force kill it with somehow like low -9 near V, I don't have kibble, obviously. Even that would be handled reasonably well because RocksDB guarantees that it leaves the files in consistent state and no inconsistencies can possibly happen. There is a lot of fine print around it.
No, can you show again the command to run with debug log on? Okay.
There's verbose empty. And this a user can change at runtime. We'll get to it later if we have time and interest, but okay, we have interest. Okay, we'll get to it later. Now we have a node which connects to our LearnNet network. Let's see which changes I had to do to make this happen. So, config file, what did I change? I didn't enable debug RPC, but I wanted to. I set the boot node to one of my instances that I know, Pertrans, and the boot node flag. Yes, the coloring is fantastic. So it has the node key, IP address, port for connections to peers. that's enough. And there can be a comma-separated list of nodes which are considered boot nodes. And those will be, when you have no RocksDB database, the node will first contact those nodes in the boot nodes parameter. However, if it has some peers in its RocksDB, then this value is completely ignored. It will try to pick peers it knows about, and it doesn't care which of the nodes is considered the boot node. Reconnect delay, it was removed in 131, doesn't matter. Monitor peers. Here, one network is the change introduced in 131, and what we're running now is 130. Does it matter for our exercise? No. Greg is the person who knows all about it because he implemented it, but it basically means a network of connections between validators with some guarantees for message delivery, which is important and improves our network latency by a lot. Mean number of peers for consensus. I reduced it from 3 to 0. If you set it to 3, it means you need to have at least 4 validators to produce a block. If I understand correctly, maybe not. Anyway, with this config, a single validator is enough to produce blocks. If Simonas, you have a better idea or somebody, please correct me. Tracked shards set to an array of 0, which is interpreted as track all shards. Because otherwise the nodes won't be much useful. If, for example, they are chunk-only producers, I need to introduce chunk-only producers. It's complicated. So the way we want validators to run, we want them to track all shards of the network so that they know and process all changes, all transactions to the whole network. That way, if they are reassigned from producing chunk from one shard to another shard between epochs, they already have the state. They don't have to download it from the peers because that process is not working perfectly well, and we would rather avoid it. So we require all validators on mainnet and testnet to track all shards today. Save 3 changes is deprecated. Archive true, because in this network, epoch length I set to very low, specifically 100, which means that if I am more than 5 epochs in the future, nobody will be able to sync from Genesis. And so I set it to true, which makes my node archival, which makes every block available, and every possible node can sync from me, which is what I want. Try cache is some changes from Alexander. Around migration threads, I don't know. Then let's look at Genesis. I don't know how to replace the beautiful pink color with something more readable. So, PNAD, that's my custom name, protocol version 57, which is the protocol version of 130 binary. Num block producer seeds per shard needs contain as many values as there are shards. That's 1. And 2, it means that we can have at most 10 validators in our network. In mainnet, I think this number is 100. Epoch length reduced by a lot to 100. In production, in mainnet and testnet, this value is 43,000, which corresponds to roughly 12 hours of blocks. In reality, it's more like 13 to 16 hours of blocks produced, which makes us have slightly fewer than 2 epochs per 24 hours. But 2 epochs per 24 hours was the intended amount. Then kickout threshold reduced to 80. I don't remember what's the mainnet version value, but I think it was reduced to 80 recently. Maybe blocks are 90, chunks are 80, I forgot. And this defines how many of expected blocks and chunks your validator needs to produce to avoid being kicked. If your validator is kicked, it means you will receive no rewards, and you will not be a validator during the next epoch, yes. Which means missing more rewards, which sometimes makes users, delegators, choose a different staking pool to delegate their tokens to. And so validators care a lot about these kickout thresholds because nobody likes to be kicked out. Then Genesis contains a list of validators. In my case, it's a single account called boot. It cannot be empty because if your blockchain has no validators, it's stuck forever and not useful. So let's give at least one. And the keys are created locally. So shard layout. This defines 4 shards that are split in this ASCII space of accounts from the very beginning to accounts starting with FFFF, from that to accounts starting with MMMM, and then to UUU, which doesn't correspond to mainnet. In mainnet, for example, the whole the whole shard 1 is dedicated to account Aurora, which usually leads to even if we run any kind of load test to generate any traffic, we can hardly generate traffic for that specific top-level account, and so that leads to poor load distribution. And in my tests, I prefer to just use a custom sharding layout. And then the Genesis file contains all the records, which is the account state at the Genesis block. It contains access keys and maybe contracts, but that would be too complicated to include. I can just deploy my code later. And so this was enough. Those few changes were enough to make a reasonable network that people can join. Okay, and now let's make you validators. This long context. Okay, so let's look at my validator key. It says account test.near, and I'm pretty sure this account doesn't exist. So let's just delete this. Yes, let's just delete this. And create a new account using near CLI. But, oh wait, it's not installed. Install it. Install it. Run these 2 commands. One installs Node.js and npm, and the other one uses npm to install that near CLI package. And a big difference from the production mainnet setup is that all staking pools on mainnet are delegation pools, which means it's a smart contract which has an API of I give them my tokens and that account stakes them. That's a complicated setup which I cannot reproduce. We also don't have a wallet setup. That would be too much infrastructure work. Instead, I suggest we create accounts directly. Okay, I will give you the top-level keys from the near account, and you will use that to create your own account. using near CLI. And near CLI is a very useful tool for any kind of local development and playing with the network. It lets you inject transactions, lets you inspect states of accounts, lets you do a lot of interesting things with the network. Okay, Node.js is mostly installed, mostly. Yep, and now this command uses npm to install near CLI for all users of the machine. It's usually advised against installing npm packages globally, but should be fine in this case. Near CLI doesn't get updates too often. So how do we know it's installed? The command near works, prints you a nice help message with a long list of commands it supports, which is exactly what we want. I guess that is working for everyone. Now complicated step.
Quick question. Where do you get this JSON? I don't know, account ID, public key, secret key thing from?
When I created the network, I put the public key, that corresponding public key in Genesis, and I have the private key. So I know this because I created the network. I need the yes. I need the node to be running. So go install. So I need the node to run. Now I can use near CLI to talk to my localnet node, but it says so I know that the way near CLI works, it creates a directory called near credentials in my home directory. That I know. And so I did this complicated command. This is what I want to do. But to do this, I need to know the near key. Okay? So when I run this command, it complains that, oh no, I don't have the key from the near account, but at least it creates the directory. Near credentials local is empty. Now in this directory, we can create the file near.json, copy that stuff over here, repeat the invocation of create account. That message says that we submitted a transaction to our local node, but it times out, which we also see in the logs, that transaction keeps timing out. I wonder why. So my other two nodes are running fine. Okay, created. And yes, I should have changed the name of my account to something reasonable, like my username, therefore. Mhm. Cool. This command state shows me the account state. It tells me that I have 1,000,000 tokens. Nothing is staked yet. And that's what I want to know. So for example, this. And the next command would be stake. Is it stake? Yes. What is wrong? Okay. Okay. I'm confused. What are we doing? So this is my key. Let's, by the way, copy it to be my validator key. Just copy in without any changes. It contains the account name, public key, private key. That's exactly what I need in my validator key. Restarting the node, and now it will attempt to join the network as a validator as soon as it contains the stake. And because our epochs are 100 blocks, which is roughly 100 seconds, it will happen quite soon. Now the question is, how do I actually stake without the delegation tool? Okay, please work. So don't stake with my account, stake with your account, but this is the idea. So to recap, you create an account, you check that it exists with the state command, you run the stake command, and you run the state command again to check that locked is now greater than 0, and that the remaining available liquid amount is something less than 1,000,000. And soon, because I did the staking, my node will join the network as a validator and will actually, and we can check if it's already voting for itself to be a validator. Yes, yes. So the proposals command of near CLI shows me that this account takes 99,000 tokens to get 1 seed as a block producer, probably. Oh, and this account already created 80 chunks out of 80 chunks expected. Interesting. Yeah, so this works. I don't see anyone else joining, so yes, please ask questions.
Yeah, so I think when I do the command near env equals local near and then create account, so I had an error that says failed to load master account key from validator key.json. So I looked at the .near and I don't see the validator key. So is there a place where we added the validator key.json?
No, and I argue that you don't need it. All you need is this file with the contents posted above.
Oh, okay.
Time check, acknowledged.
Let me check it. Oh, it has to be in the .near credentials / local directory,
Yes.
not, okay, I see.
If you have this file, then you can run create account using the near as the master account, so that your new account will be sub-account of near. It will be something.near. You can use any account like this, but the ones you create will be sub-accounts. If you have wallet set up, this is how like testnet wallet works. It will use some interesting smart contracts to let you create accounts that are something.near, which is not possible during using near CLI. You need some special access to the near top level account to be able to create sub accounts of that. So we're using a shortcut here by doing this command line magic. Proposals. Hey, I see one new proposal. Nice. In about a minute, you will become a validator.
How do I check whether there is, well, yeah. Is that, okay, proposals. Validators.
Validators current, validators next, or validators and block hash of the first block of an epoch or the last block of an epoch. I always forget. But you cannot just give it a random block hash. It needs to be the first block of an epoch, which is not convenient at all. And I can see the stake increasing by some amount, which is because the rewards for the epoch are being distributed. The bigger the stake, the higher the rewards. Also, the higher the uptime, the higher the rewards.
I think my command of creating the account is like retrying request to broadcast tx commit as it has timed out. Should I just run it again, or should I just wait?
Just wait.
Okay.
Because right here, I am generating some small amount of traffic by running transactions, running function, very simple function calls in a bash for loop. Maybe that helps. Okay, kickouts. What every validator is afraid is being kicked. You can be kicked for two reasons. One is not enough blocks produced, another is not enough chunks produced. The threshold is either 80 or 90%, I always forget. and they used to be different for testnet and mainnet. So every time we do an upgrade, for reasons we don't fully understand, we see that validators for some time are likely to miss chunks, which makes them very nervous, which makes them contact us asking why everybody misses chunks. And the answer is, we still don't know. One day we will fully investigate and understand and make it not and prevent this from happening. But at the moment, the sad reality is that yes, validators are likely to miss chunks after upgrades or restarts. I wish I knew why. And then there is another scenario where validators need to pay some attention to their node is when we have a new binary available, like we go from 130 to 131, which contains a protocol upgrade. To upgrade the binary, you need to stop your node and start it with the new binary. Sometimes starting the node requires a database migration, which means it will take some number of minutes, up to an hour, for an RPC node to go through the whole database and fix something or change something to the new format. And that is unacceptable because during that time you are almost guaranteed to miss production of some expected chunks of blocks. And what validators do, they have at least one backup node. So you have a node which validates, you have some other nodes which are backup nodes. You will upgrade them first. You will check that they work fine with the new binary. Then you stop validator in the backup. You change the keys, the validator keys, and you start them again. And that way, the restart is much faster, and you almost miss almost no blocks. Some validators are very interested in contributing a mechanism to let us change the keys at runtime. For example, you can make a backup node a validator without stopping it first. That would be very useful for the whole ecosystem, because our current documentation says just run near drun and you're a validator, and we provide no instructions how to actually be a validator with 100% uptime. And it's community tribal knowledge how to make it work effectively, which is suboptimal. I wish somebody published this documentation, somebody improved the clients to make this use case supported, but today it's not yet supported. Okay, best chain is near. Nice. Oh no, I forgot to stake. Yes, why I don't need a validator key? You need a validator. So when you create your account, copy that account from near credentials local to be your validator key. So something like that. And restart the node and stake. And then it will be validator. How to check if you were kicked?
Yeah, I think that chain here also has been kicked. Well, because of the 0% online. No idea why.
I also don't know. How firewalls. If you created I just created a node with you, there are no firewalls, but maybe you have your own private firewalls. But why would you? We're talking GCP to GCP. Interesting. So this didn't work. And we're out of time. Thank you for your attention. You have the presentation from George coming up.